It is the top of the hour, so 5 p.m. on the west coast of Canada here, and we're going to kick off our meetup and get it started here so that we can get into Erik's presentation. So welcome, everyone. I'm just going to go through and do my usual bit with the standard, thanking for the sponsors and whatnot. So bear with me as we go through and start into that right now. So our title sponsor, as always, is SkillWave. This is the training site that I run with Matt Allington on how to learn awesome techniques around working with Power Query and Power Pivot and Power BI, building business intelligence. So if you're looking to really upskill your game, you should definitely come and visit us there. I also run Excel Guru. That is actually the parent company of SkillWave and the producer of Monkey Tools, which is an Excel add-in to help you build better data models faster. In some ways, kind of, I don't know, similar, but you see some cool things tonight, I think, that lean into this with the add-in component. So our next meetups that are coming up, we are welcoming Alex Powers back on for our Power BI meetup on October 19th, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific time. He's going to be talking about Microsoft Fabric for Power BI users. So if you are wondering what the heck happened and where Fabric came from and why Fabric is everywhere and Power BI seems to be, missing in discussions these days, Alex is going to explain all of that to us. So it should be a great session. And then our next Excel meetup that's coming November 9th, 5 p.m. Pacific time, is Danielle Stein-Fairhurst, who I know is actually with us in the chat right now. She's going to be talking about reducing errors in Excel financial models. So that should be a great presentation as well. Danielle always does a fantastic job talking about financial modeling. So make sure that you sign up for these. The RSVPs are open. My animations are a little bit off on that one. This I announced actually at the last Power BI meetup, but again, that we're in the Excel track here. If you're following Monkey Tools, you may have missed this. We have, in the same vein that Microsoft has done an update to the formula bar for monospaced fonts, we've done the same thing in Monkey Tools. Ironically enough, some of my stuff actually had monospaced fonts in place, but I actually went through every single form in the entire program and replaced it to make sure that I was actually picking up the Consolas monospaced font specifically, so that you can actually get the strike through in your zero, so you can tell the difference between that and a capital O, which I think makes it a lot better. So there's a couple of screenshots from those particular pieces. If you haven't checked out Monkey Tools, you should definitely do so by heading over to monkeytools.ca. My Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp training program starts next semester, starts on October 11th, which, if I'm looking correctly, is like next Wednesday. This is a fantastic program if you are looking to get yourself or someone in your organization to upskills with the Excel basics and set them up for advanced data analysis. We look at things like basic formulas and pivot tables, data visualization, and Power Query. It has live Ask Ken sessions for an entire year so that people can actually get interaction and help apply the techniques to their own work. And if you're already, figure that is within your wheelhouse, you may be interested in my self-service BI bootcamp. This is where we actually look at the entire journey from raw data through Power Query into Power Pivot, DAX formulas, start reporting with pivot tables and whatnot, as well as how to work with Power BI and how similar those skill sets are. Again, comes with the access to my Ask Ken sessions, gives you a Monkey Tools Pro license, a copy of my book, all kinds of good stuff in there. So if you're interested, you should definitely check this out as well. Again, the next semester starts on October 11th. It's a great program. We have a lot of good times in here, and I'd love to see you join us. This meetup, as all meetups, are recorded and hosted on the SkillWave YouTube channel. The link to the SkillWave YouTube channel is here. Of course, these slide decks are all posted on the meetup site already. I will post the meetup recording within the next 24 to 48 hours after it finishes so that you can actually watch it back later if you want to review some of the stuff that's going on. If you're interested in bite-sized training, the Monkey Shorts videos that we're featuring today, we've got to keep null values during unpivot operations, kind of a tricky little problem. Depends on whether or not it's text or numbers that you're actually working with, as well as unpivoting error values, because that can be a little bit problematic as well. So you can check those out on YouTube. Each of them are less than 3 minutes of technical content. The last thing that I'm going to throw out here is if you are interested in coming and speaking at VanPUG, we would love to have you. Just fill out the little survey here at excelguru.ca/speak@VanPUG. We will get in touch with you and get you onto our stage. We're currently booking into next year, so you've got time to work on a presentation, but definitely we'd love to have you there. So if you're interested, let us know. And on that note, I am actually going to end sharing of my slide deck because it's time to turn the platform over to Erik. And one of the things that Erik told me here is that he wants to set expectations on this. Normally, he's been building things and hiding throughout the world. So be kind to him, as this being online and presenting is kind of new. I'm sure it's going to go just fine. Our members are usually pretty kind here. But Erik, the floor is yours. If you want to take over, let's hear about how the robots are coming.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. I have to say, my very first Power Query training was with you. Gosh, I don't know how many years ago it was now, but that was my introduction to Power Query. It was a great session, so I can definitely vouch for your training skills.
Love hearing that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Made me a fan of Power Query for sure.
There you go.
So, but I'm pretty much a fan of Excel in most every possible way. Although my last presentation I did was called Excel's Most Annoying Features. So I guess I can't say that everything I like is everything about Excel I like. Part of the first presentation that I did was for Thelia's Toronto meetup. And in that one, I talked a lot about my background and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna, if anybody's interested more about me, watch that presentation because I don't want to take up as much time on that. I kind of felt like I spent a lot of time talking about slides and not enough on the demo. So this one's, I'm going to try to do less slides, more demo in this presentation. So I'm in California, and I've been doing this Excel automation stuff since Excel 4 days, so Excel 4 macros. And now for the last 20 years, have been running my own business doing Excel development professionally. And I have a team that works for me. We focus on automating things. So I have a lot of experience in this area. And part of the reason that I'm coming out of the programming closet is the public humiliation closet is that I feel like I've kind of come to some epiphanies about Excel. To come out and talk about it. And I enjoy this topic so much that I actually created a tool that helps me execute things, these microautomations. So you'll be seeing a tool that will be coming out soon, and let's see. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me because Ken disappeared. Somebody say something in the chat.
I can hear you now,
okay.
Erik. It's good. There had a brief pause. So.
Oh, okay. No problem. Fantastic. So let's get going. I'm going to show my screen and let's talk about microautomations. All right. Hopefully you can see me now. We are, let's see here. We are now in Excel, and we're going to be talking about microautomations. So first I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of Excel automation, because if you've been on this journey of automating Excel, you probably started where everybody starts, which is the macro recorder. You record these macros, you can record fairly simple stuff. You quickly realize that you can't create loops, and it just kind of skips certain things, and it's a lot of hard-coded recordings. Next up, you start creating these super long recorded macros that you think you can go through and start improving the macros and putting loops around things and kind of making it a little bit more professional. From there, you realize that there's a whole nother world of professional Excel development. So if you have read some of the great books out there about Excel development, you learn what not to do and what to do and that sort of thing. And today I'm going to be introducing a new concept, kind of a different way of looking at this. In my own personal opinion, I think it changes everything. Hopefully this is like a life-changing event for some of you, or at least hopefully you enjoy it and you say at the end, "Oh, that was cool." So these monster automations are you've experienced them. They have like hard-coded values in them, and if you insert a column somewhere, your macro breaks. Usually you inherit them from somebody else. It's like a nightmare to have to deal with, and you just are always kind of like crossing your fingers and hoping they don't stop working, because you'll probably never figure out exactly what's going on. Here. So basically, the monster automations, you just want to try to avoid those. Then there's professional Excel development. I've been doing this for a super long time, like literally 25, 30 years or something like that. It's been a long time of doing this. So I've gotten very good at it over the years, and clients pay us good money to create solutions for them. But there's still problems with this. It takes a lot of very high skill level to be able to do really kind of enterprise level Excel development. That means it costs a lot of money, because time is money. Even as much as we take precautions to make things flexible using named ranges and metadata to automate things so that things will move correctly when you want to insert a column and do all of these things. We have a lot of techniques that we use to make them as flexible as possible. They still require human intervention as things change. We do a lot of work for hedge funds. Hedge funds, it's like the things are always changing. So we have a lot of experience in that. But it still makes for some challenges. Another thing is that when you go into to do a project for a new client, there's a high barrier to entry, because you really have to sell them on the whole entire solution, the whole entire automation. You can't just start with a small pain point and start chipping away and biting off on one at a time and growing it. It's just not the best way to do those types of projects. So the other thing is that it typically addresses the specific need that the client has. So for example, a lot of times clients come to us and they say, "Oh, we got this 3-day manual process. Can you make it easier?" And maybe we can get it down to 3 minutes. But the ironic thing is that at the end, like, they don't get 3 days off. Like, those 3 days that they were busy doing this just get filled up with more crap work. And so unless you can figure out a way to automate the things that they do every day and have that kind of sprinkle and be reusable in different ways, then you've basically simplified things, but you didn't really make the rest of their week better, because it just gets filled up with other stuff. And then the other thing is that when you take a 3-day process and go down to a 3-minute process, if anything goes wrong in that 3-minute process, it goes halfway through or whatever, you don't have any time to be doing it the old-fashioned way. In fact, most often, if this is like 2 years later and the person who explained to you all of the stuff that you automated is long gone, and so your client's coming to you if something's not working, and so it becomes kind of all or nothing. It's part of the problem with the bigger types of projects. So over the years of doing this, I kind of figured out that there is a better way. and it is microautomations. So microautomations are basically small components of work that are simple, generalized, shareable, frictionless, contextual building blocks for productivity. That's a mouthful. I got to figure out a better list for that. But essentially, the things that you do that are small but reusable in different ways. And in the interesting thing that gave me an epiphany about this is Excel itself, because Microsoft Excel is basically a giant microautomation toolkit. It's like thousands and thousands of features built into Excel, and they all do little things. And when you click on one of those buttons on the toolbar, or right click on something and choose a shortcut menu item, you're really running a little microautomation. And the beauty and power of Excel is that it's like a palette of things that you can do that you can use in any creative combination. So a lot of the things that end up trying to be competitive to Excel are doing too much. That's what makes Excel so great, is that flexibility. So there's lots of different types of micro automations within Excel that you can create. Most likely, when you think of automation, you think of VBA. And VBA is a great way to automate things in Excel. You can do big things or little things when you use VBA. But there's so many more things now in Excel that lend itself to microautomations. When you write a formula, if you can make that formula reusable in some way, then that becomes a little program. There's different types of programming languages, and some are called functional programming languages. So when you're writing a formula, you are actually programming. You're programming in a functional programming language that is Excel's formula language. And now with the let statement and the lambda, the let function and the lambda function, it gives you even more power for creating complex programs in Excel. And then, of course, there's Power Query, which has M, which is a programming language. There's DAX, which is in Power Pivot, which is a programming language. Even something like styles, there's cell styles, pivot table styles, slicer styles, chart styles. Those are all encapsulating a bunch of information about how you want something formatted. And when you apply that style, there's no programming language to that, but when you apply that style, that is essentially a custom microautomation that you're applying to something to make it the right colors and the right everything. Now we have the PY function, brand new. Well, we don't really have it. I guess it's part of the beta program, which I actually, for the first time, installed the beta version just so that I can get this Python command and play around with it. So that's very cool. There's lots of other ways that you can think about microautomations, including things outside of Excel, like AutoHotkey is a scripting language that's very cool. Okay, and then when you think about ways to launch macros, so now we're talking about VBA macros, because in Excel, there's not a lot of great options for launching anything but VBA macros. You can also launch Office scripts. You can put buttons on sheets and whatnot. But basically, the way you launch things in Excel is you can use the run macros, which is Alt F8. I had to look that up because I'm not good at remembering shortcuts. There's keyboard shortcuts. That's where you assign a macro to a keyboard shortcut. You can drop buttons onto your quick access toolbar, which makes it very easy to click on those. You can also do it with your keyboard to access that. So that's very efficient, but there's only so many slots and it's a little tiny icon. So it's not ideal. You can create custom ribbons, which is a bit of a programming task. It's not that as easy as it sounds to create your own custom ribbon, but once you do, it can be a great interface for running your own macros. I also have a Stream Deck, which is I don't know if I can pull it over here without, but it looks like this. It's like a bunch of buttons. And when I first got it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best thing ever. I can just push buttons on my Stream Deck and to run macros. The problem is you have to take your hands off the keyboard. You have to look over, away from your screen. So it's a pretty nifty tool. It's highly programmable, but it just wasn't meeting my needs of what I wanted to do. So basically, about I'd say it's like 4 years ago, I had this idea of creating a microautomation launcher. So essentially, I'm a little bit dyslexic, and it's really hard for me to remember keyboard shortcuts. And I'm super impressed by, the Dermot Earleys and the, people like that out there that are just super duper fast with the keyboard shortcuts. And I know a lot of keyboard shortcuts because I've been working in Excel for so long, but it's not really my skill set. So I originally started this tool as a crutch for myself because I wanted to be fast in Excel, but I didn't want to have to remember all these keyboard shortcuts. And then after I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, instead of just running Excel features, I should be able to do it so I could run macros. And then I added more and more features. And then at some point it was kind of like, wow, I think that, this might be something that other people would want to use, because I'd show it to people and they're like, oh, Eric, you have to make this available to other people. So more recently, I've been working hard to try to make this into something that other people can use. And it's so close. It's like I really want this to be something that people can use now. But there's no better way than to do a demo. So let's jump right into that. So first of all, I'm going to start up a new workbook. So in fact, I'll even close this other workbook here because we're done with that one. And so I am in a brand new workbook here. And what I'm going to do is we're going to run through an example of a kind of a real life situation here. So in this example, first of all, you're going to start seeing a robot. So if you haven't seen OA Robot in my previous presentation, you'll see it flash up, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more as we go. But I'm going to start out with setting up what our demo is going to be about. So for starters, we are going to insert a okay, so I just ran a little micro automation there that pulled up an image. So you are basically a contractor, and you got this fixed bid job for Excel University, and basically the task is they gave you this Word document that is a mock-up of what they want their report cards to look like. So this is an image of that Word document, and I've highlighted in red the data that they said, oh, we want to be able to pull this data into this Word document, and we want it in PDFs, and we want one PDF per user, per student. And the catch is that our enrollment system, our grading system, creates files, so multiple files for each each class, and they're in folders. So we're going to take a look at how those files are arranged. So first, I'm going to run a microautomation for new sheet, and I'm going to call it file list. I have a lot of microautomations, so you probably won't have this many. So let's see here. This is import output folder. Okay. Oh no, that's not it. Demo data path. Insert demo data path. Okay, so this is a path. And if I do list all files, so list all files. So the way this interface works is if you look as you type, it's filtering the list to things that it recognizes. So it matches the first word of each, the first letter of each word, but it can do partial words, and then you can also arrow down and choose things. If you choose something, it'll remember it for next time. So if LAF for list all files doesn't come up as the first item, if you scroll down and select it in order to run it, then it'll remember that for next time. So this one is a VBA microautomation, and notice that all these microautomations are curated. So that's a big part of trying to keep your macros and your microautomations documented, is having it built right into the system. So when I run this, I get a list of files. So this is incidentally, this particular list of files or this particular microautomation I created using ChatGPT. So so one of the nice things about microautomations, and this is, I could easily have written it myself, but when you have ChatGPT and you can just ask it for a little macro to do something, it's a huge advantage. This is something that's like, going to be prevalent to everybody. Whether you know how to program or not, you need to be using these tools to your advantage. So that was, so you could see that there's one file for each folder in here, and we're going to have to pull all of these together. So I'm sure that this audience is probably very familiar with Power Query. So there's a feature in Power Query that we could click through on the Data tab to import a whole folder of files. And Microsoft, Excel makes it pretty slick to do that. But we're going to make it even slicker. So I'm going to create another new sheet. Actually, I'm going to create several new sheets. We'll get it over with here. So I'm going into Robot, and I'm saying this new sheet to write, which is what I ran earlier. I can go down and select that and hit Enter, and it'll rerun it. So I'm going to say combined data. Now, because that microautomation, because that robot command is was the last thing I did, I can hit redo, which is F4, and run it again. So I'm just going to set up some sheets here. We have student grades and merge to Word. Those are the sheets that I need. All right, this is where it's going to get fun. All right. So now we have the same path. Let's just copy this path over here. Now I'm going to do import CSV. So this is the part that I can't remember keyboard shortcuts, but when I know what I want to do, if I just say it out loud and type as I go, it makes it very easy to remember. Import CSV. So this is import a folder of CSV data. Oh, actually, before I do that, I was going to do a import smart folder query monkey. So you'll notice that Monkey Tools isn't open right now. I have a lot of add-ins, and if I have them all open all the time, then it's can bog down my Excel. So I can basically launch a command within a closed workbook or a closed DLL. So I'm going to inject a smart folder query monkey here, and what that's going to do is it just launched Monkey Tools and added the smart folder automatically to my queries and connections. It's the equivalent of clicking on this guy right here. There's all kinds of really great stuff in here. Highly recommend Monkey Tools. So now that I have that, that's a dependent query that my this next one uses. I can do import CSV, and now, boom, we have a all of the data from all of those files has now all been stacked on top of each other. It created some supporting Power Queries and a final Power Query. This Power Query I designed as a Microautomations. So so basically, think of a Power Query as a function that you can use, that you can apply at any time, anywhere you want. I'm in book 2 here. There was no queries or anything in this file. So and there was nothing open in Excel besides this. So OA Robot knew the definition of that Power Query and what the dependencies were, and it added this on the fly and made it relative to this this cell, and I told it to put it down below. So now we have data, and we can see that data much faster than clicking through all of the screens. I can see that this is not formatted correctly, so I'm going to do this format short date. FSD, format short date, makes sense to me. So there we go. And now if we wanted to just get an idea of what kind of data we have here, because keep in mind, we're shooting for this data layout here. So if you look, it has all of the assignment detail, what date it was on, the points, all this kind of stuff. If we wanted to just look at one person, let me just choose one of these guys. We'll do filter selected value, FSV, filter by selected value. So I just filtered that so we can see that this is all of the points for the assignments of this one guy. So now I'm going to do clear table filters. Yes. So oh, also when you do these, part of my goal when I first started this was I wanted to actually learn the correct way of the correct key combinations. So Alt AC, if you can remember that, is the easy way to do this without. It's probably even easier if you can remember that, but. So it kind of trains you on what the correct the built-in shortcuts are as well. Okay, so now we are going to make this interesting. I'm going to copy this data, and I'm going to go to this next sheet, and we're going to run an automation for paste data frame. This is a Python paste data frame. So I basically defined this microautomation as take the copied range from wherever you were and reference it using a df variable for data filter, data frame. So it just pulled in that data. This is essentially the same exact data from the prior sheet. I will auto AF for auto fit column width, much easier to remember than whatever the built-in way is, at least for me. And now we can see that what we want to do is we want to get this down to just class name, professor name, and student name. So I'm going to do a Python group by, which is, this one does group by and sum, which is what I want. So if we look at the formula, really what I just did was I took whatever whatever Python code was already in there, and I tacked on another line. So this is assuming that we're working with df variables, and it took the variable, the selection, and created a list out of that, and then it assumed that we wanted to sum things up. So I'm not going to get into the Python, but there was no VBA involved in creating this, and no programming. I basically just took this code that you see right here, and I put a little code in to say I want the selection as list, as a Python list. So now we have some Python data. I'm going to auto fit this. Actually, there's a better way to do this, because I just happen to have a microautomation for format data table. So this one is specific to this demo. It's not very generic, but because I'm doing it over and over in this demo, it seemed like it would make sense to make a microautomation out of it. So if I hit enter on this, it's going to apply the custom Excel University table style to the table. So that it also removes the grid lines, because I don't like grid lines. And then, so it did an auto fit. It put some look and feel on there. And then I'm also going to do format report title, which is format the Excel University report title. So that basically put Excel University, and it took whatever the sheet name was, because earlier I named it student grades. So it seems like a good bet to make that the subtitle. So that looks a lot better. Now we're going to go back to this other sheet. And when I bring this up, if you remember, I can hit redo, and it would just do that report title over again. But you can also hold down Shift and select multiples of these. So that means that if I wanted to do both the data table formatting, the first one that I did, and the report title formatting, I can hit enter on that, and it will go boom, boom, and do both. Even better if I want to do that again, but I don't want to even go into my recents list and select the last two again. I can just hit F4, and that's redo, and that redoes the previous action. So essentially, we just wrote a macro. It was only 2-line macro, right? It was, format the table and put the report title on, but we created a little macro. You can save that off as a new microautomation. So if you can create microautomations, then you can create other microautomations that are just those microautomations built on top of each other. And keep in mind that because these microautomations are, they can be VBA, they can be Power Queries, they could be Excel formulas, they could be, any number of different things. You can create very quickly, you can create one new microautomation that does does a Power Query, and then does some VBA on it, and then does a lambda, on it, and you can tie those together into one a new microautomation very easily. You can give it a friendly name that makes sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to other people. It has to make sense to you, maybe your client. So that was an example of kind of the redo feature of that. So now let's get back over here, because we still have more to do with this data. If we look at this, it wants a GPA, and also wants these as grades. Now, if we were without microautomations, we'd have to be thinking, okay, how am I going to turn points earned and points possible into a letter grade? You're going to have to first of all, you're going to have to figure out the percent, which we can do fairly easily. We'll do equals, I'm going to round it so it looks better, divided by this, comma, I'm going to do times 100, comma 1. Okay, so that's that's a percent. Now the tough part is you have to turn this into a letter grade. That would be, just get this set up here. So in order to turn this into a letter grade, I'm going to use some different microautomations here. First, I'm going to do, I forget what this one's called, duplicate to write, which takes the existing, it references the formula that you were on from the right. So now it's equal to that cell. And now I'm going to run a microautomation called letter grade. It's actually called convert percent grade to letter grade. And when I hit that, what that just did was it put in a lambda. So that lambda, if you look up here in the formula bar, you'll see that there's a percent to letter grade. So obviously I had to write that, and I had to create a microautomation that says, here's my lambda. I want to make this into a microautomation. But once you've done that, you can kind of build this library of every lambda that you get off of the internet or whatever. You just kind of, the ones that are important to you, you name them the way you like them, and then you have those kind of at your fingertips. So so this is one that one that I have, and I also have one for editing lambdas. So I'm going to do edit lambda EL just to kind of show you what's in there. So most of you are probably familiar with if you've done any kind of lambda work, you have experienced the name manager and that little tiny box that you're like, how am I supposed to, edit a lambda in this little tiny box? So you have to copy it out. But then the great Microsoft folks came up with an add-in and called the Advanced Formula Editor that makes it easier to do that. But then you have to start that up. It has to be open off to the side. I just want to see it in my screen. So here I'm using a lambda with a let. You can see the what that looks like. And then to get out of that, I'm going to do cancel lambda edit, and then that takes me back to the way we were. So I'm going to copy that down. Then I'm going to do that duplicate to write again, and I'm going to do another one for GPA. Sorry, that was kind of fast. So that was convert to GPA. It's not showing up. I was so fast it didn't show up in my recent list. Also, when I'm doing Control D to copy down, I don't know whether you noticed, but I'm not doing that thing. I'm not clever enough to figure out how to do that thing where you go over and then Shift Tab and then end down and all that stuff to get down to the end. So I just programmed Control D to do auto fill down, which is another one of my microautomations. So just in case you guys are wondering, oh, this is really cool, but am I going to have to write all these microautomations? Most of these things that I'm showing you I'm going to make available in GitHub projects, and they're going to be free to use. So this is there will be a paid version of this tool, but a lot of the stuff that you see that if you want to run things that already exist are made by us or made by other people. They're very shareable, and you'll be able to do a lot of this stuff yourself using this tool, hopefully soon. So that was GPA. Now we have sort of what we want. We have our percent grade and our letter grade. Now, in order to get a GPA, if you go back and look at what we're shooting for here, it's really one GPA. You don't really have a GPA per class. You just want a total GPA. So we're going to have to do a little bit more summarizing, because what we want to do is for one of these, for each of these people, we need to get the average GPA. We're assuming that the classes are weighted evenly. Otherwise, it'd be some kind of a weighted average, but we're going to do the average GPA. So, so that brings us back to where we kind of similar to what we did before. I'm going to name this range, because that's going to come in handy later. So I'm going to do create named range, and asks for a name. I'm going to call it student grades. And then I'm going to take this. Now, keep in mind that this is a combination of Python over here, an Excel formula here, lambdas over here. We have some with headers, some with no headers. But we can basically just copy this whole thing, go over to the next sheet, and do that same paste data frame. Paste data frame. And now we have all of that data again as a data frame that we can start doing stuff. In this particular case, we want to do a group by student name instead. So we're going to do Python group by and average. So now we have, and we want to do our, where did that go? We want these two. Boom. Looking good. Well, let's just format these numbers as 1 decimal places so it looks nice. So now we have some, we have at the student level, we have our GPAs that we wanted kind of summarized. What else do we need? Let's go back and look. So we have the first name, we have the GPA, we have this data, but it's like on another sheet. We'll have to do something about that. We need the first name. Okay, so first name is easy. You just want to do the first name, but here we have Mr. So that makes it a little bit fancier. Now we could write a bunch of formulas here, but it'd be much nicer if we had a microautomation for this. So I'm going to take first name. And just because this is 2023 and everything involves AI now, I'm going to do a AI first name. So wrap with AI first name. Now, if you look at the little description, it says uses Microsoft Labs generative AI function to get the first name from a full name. That means that I don't have to write a formula anymore. You can just ask AI to do it, and that's what we're going to do. So if you look at the formula bar now, does it look good? Oh, I skipped a step. First, I need to go over here and point at one of these so that I start with a full name in the cell. Then I can run that again. AI first name. That's better. Now we can copy that down. And Germain, it did figure out that even though it says Mr. Germain Little, it figured out that that's the first name. So that's pretty slick. And you can see what the formula is. I just basically, I wrote it once and then I was like, well, shoot, like, why should I have to do that over and over? The beautiful thing about these, there's Copilot, there's Google has one, there's ChatGPT, there's Bing, and you type in this question and you explain what you want to do, and it gives you this answer. And it's like, wow, it's like a miracle. But then the next time you have to do the same thing, you're like, what am I supposed to do? Go type all that in again? No. You've captured this little way of doing stuff. You usually have to fine tune it and tweak it a little bit. So once you figure out how to do it, you want to capture that and you want that to become curated. So you don't have to remember where is that, like, it's in some weird file somewhere. I don't know, whether it's VBA or Power Query or like AI will write anything for you nowadays, as long as, if you don't mind being the prompt engineer, because it's only, it only works well if you explain things well. But once you do it once, turn it into a robot command, and then you can run it whenever you want. I did not have anything open when we started, so this was You know, OA Robot understands this exists, and when you create these, you can make them available. You can email the robot files to your friends, and then they can use them just as easily as you can. So they're very shareable. All right, so that's that. Now what we're going to do is let's just do a quick merge to Word. So I'm going to select, I'm just going to do like a couple. Let's just do the first three. I could type merge to Word. So merge to Word says generates Word or PDF files based on the selected merge configuration data. So this is a very common task. Sometimes you want to merge to Word, sometimes you want to merge to email, sometimes you want to merge to PowerPoint. You might want to merge text. You might want to merge a table. You might want to merge an image. It could be an image of cells. It could be an image of a chart. All those sort of things are all things that are very common. So we have a merge robot that basically has all these different, you know, variations of different things you might want to do. So we're going to do merge to Word. Originally, when I did this, you'd have to have certain columns already predefined, and you'd have to remember what they're called. And I'm not good at remembering stuff. So now it doesn't, you don't have to remember anything. You just have to remember merge to Word. That's the only thing you have to remember. And then when you run it, it'll ask you the questions. It says template column not found. If I had put a template column with the name, the path of the template file, I wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be asking me this. But we're going to go into this folder here, and here's our report card template. And then file name not found. I'm going to just take the default for now. Yeah, we'll add a column for it. Output folder not found. Okay, I'm going to find this file here. There's my output folder. And yeah, sure, add it to the table. So it did the adding to the table stuff for me, so that I didn't have to remember what, you know, names to put. I just can't remember stuff anymore. I think I'm getting old. So that just opened up the file at the end, and here's what it created. Created it in another screen here. So yeah, it looks pretty good. So there's these codes here. I'll show you what that looks like as a template now, because I did skip a step. I was going to go down here and insert report card template picture. So what I did, if you look here, is I took the original Word document that the client sent me, and I basically just typed in substitutions for wherever there was something I wanted to substitute. I just typed in with the angle less than greater than brackets around things, and replaced the text that was already in the Word. That's all I did. It's nothing special. You can just type it in. The main thing you have to remember is you got to name things the same thing as your headers over here. So now I'm going to, let's get that formatting looking good. So now we have one last thing, which is this table here. So it's probably hard for you to see, but it says report card. And then it has the names of the columns within that. So, so ideally, we'd like to say report card here as another field. And I'm going to hide these columns because really they're no longer HC for hide columns. And then we also don't need we don't need these. So F4 to redo. So now auto fit. So really what we'd like is a whole table in this one little cell, and there's no way for us to do that. So we have to somehow tell this merge to Word that there's a whole table of data here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off to the right, and we're going to build that little table. So I'm going to say equals student grades, which is that data from before. Now we're in dynamic array world here. So when you see this box around something, it's called a spill range. So we're working with a dynamic array. So I also have array robot, which has a bunch of cool stuff that I can do. So for our little grade box, we don't need these columns. So I'm going to do RC for remove columns of array. And if you look in the if you look up here, you'll see that that just wrapped the existing formula with another formula that selected just those things. And we don't need GPA at this level either, so I'll hit F4 and it'll get rid of that as well. So that's looking a little bit better. Let's auto fit it so we can see what it looks like. Great. So that's almost what we want. Now there's a couple nice things about this merge to Word. There's a merge index, and when you run this thing, it creates a merge to Word index, which returns the index of the row in this main table. So it's on number 3 right now, Erik Oehm. So if I filter on this, I'm going to do filter array. This is filter array by selected values. Okay, that just took my, that just wrapped that dynamic array with a filter array as a lambda that I wrote, which makes it easy to like filter by things. I actually have to fix one thing because I lost my my header, but I can put that back. It was called student name. There we go. So now this is looking a lot better. But we don't want Erik, it says Erik Oehm is like hard coded in here. So what we want to do, student name, is we want to take that index and we want to do index of this list over here by this cell here. So now we have Erik Oehm. So instead of, I could go here and just point at this cell, but because we're doing microautomations, I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do substitute copied text for reference. So that takes the value, the cell that you copied, and it finds that value inside your formula and replaces that with a reference to that. So if you look, that just became an R2. So if you had a bunch of different things, you could actually select multiple things and it would do that. So now we have this. So this is now dynamic based on this merge to Word. So I'm going to put some formatting on this. And now if we come back over here, we have to tell it that it's this table over here that we want to merge in. We do that using the built-in cell feature, which you give it an address. And then we can basically come over here and refer to that. We copy that down. It says the same address every time. That's because as it loops through these one by one, that index, that merge index, is going to go 1, 2, 3, and you'll actually see that over here when we do it. Let me close this. So now let's do this again. I'm not going to do them all, but I'll do a little bit more. Oh, I'm also going to change it so that the instead of the file name being report card 1, report card 2, it'd be much nicer if that was the user's name and .pdf. Okay, so now these are the file names are going to be okay, so now we're going to take this, we'll do the first 5, and we do merge to Word, let her rip. And if you watch over here, you can see the merge index changing, and this is a dynamic array, so there's no Power Query that you need to refresh or any macro code involved. There's very, very little VBA or coding involved in any of this that I'm showing you. Now the output folder, took us to the output folder, so we can open up one of these. Opened up on the wrong sheet. And now it filled in the data, so that's exactly what we were hoping for. And we did all of that from scratch with very few keystrokes. Would have taken a very long time to do all of this manually. And since we did this on a fixed budget, we had excellent return on our development there. So so that concludes the demo portion. I can't emphasize enough that I hope that you have kind of seen the light that this way of doing things in little micro automations has a lot of power to it. So we ran like I don't remember how many micro automations. I think I have a so here's all the micro automations we just ran in this process. It's like 32 micro automations. Many of those are reusable in any situation. So none of this was specific to this demo. Well, I mean, some of them were demo specific, but they're not like you could run any of these on any file. If somebody sends you a file that you've never seen before, you can run these on that. So it's very flexible in that that sort of way. So that concludes my presentation. One thing that I will say is if you want more information about this, I'm going to hit refresh because this is fun. Go to oarobot.com. That is where you can join the waiting list in order to have access to this. We're going to be giving it to beta testers first. So there's a checkbox you can click to ask to be a beta tester. We're very close on adding more beta testers. I know there's some in queue right now. So yeah. So from there, now I'm open for questions, comments, etc.
All right, thanks, Eric. That's man, a lot of stuff to think about in that one for sure. So, I don't actually see any questions in the chat. The only thing we've got is somebody with a comment of the or the visual comment of the mind blown as you were going through that. So so let me ask you that. So in this, I mean, obviously there's a huge list of micro automations that you have in there. How easy is it to go in and build your own to add to that?
It's very easy to do. Basically, you can create them in all sorts of different ways. The definitions of them are so if I open this up and look at merge to Word, for example, I can edit this one and I can see how it's defined. So this is in Merge Robot. So I call these command collections robots. So we have a whole bunch of actually let me go back to over here. So there's command collections. These are all the which command collections I got these from. So think of a command collection as a workbook that has definitions of your robot commands. And the robot command, like we said before, could be a formula, could be a Power Query, could be VBA, could be all these different things. So we can take a peek at the definition of some of these just to see what we have. The icons to the left are telling you what type of command it is. So there's auto hotkey scripts, .NET, Excel, Python, send keys, F#, ChatGPT commands, Power Query, REST API, all kinds of different stuff that you can connect this up to. So if we go back and look at the definition of merge to Word, you'll see that this is a VBA macro command. So that's the type of command. And this particular one is running VBA, mod merge to, and then merge to word, and it passes the selection. So it's context sensitive. So it uses your selected cells, and it's going to pass that as a range object parameter to your macro. So there's all kinds of different things you can put in here to tap into your your instance of Excel. So it's all contextualized to your to that Excel. There's lots of different features involved in that. So if we look at one that's as simple as hide columns here, that this is a send keys command. So super simple. It's just basically sending control 0. So if I had known that I could just do control 0, then I would have just done control 0. If we look at one that is, here's that wrap with AI first name, that one is defined as the function, just like you saw it in the cell, but where we have the reference in there, I have a code saying the formula of the active cell. So the cell that we were in had a formula that said equals B4 or whatever. It wrapped that formula equals B4, took off the equal sign, and wrapped it with this code. So there's no VBA involved. I just copied, I did new Excel formula command, and I pasted my formula in there, and I took out the B4 and put this code in instead. So that's how that one worked. If we look at one that's more complicated, like here's the Power Query one. This one is it's using a query expression, which is based on a Power Query that I wrote, and it names the outputting Power Query. You can tell what you want the Power Query to be called. I told it that I wanted to be put as a destination 2 cells below the active cell. So that's why it put it where it put it. And then I could even give it things like it did variable substitution. So there's inside the M code, there was a let that had a hard-coded full folder path, hard-coded in the M code. I didn't even have to turn that code into a table, a proper table, because I can do variable substitution and substitute in that cell value right into the M code. And then it also can include query dependencies. So I can give it a list of other Power Queries that I want to automatically include as like kind of dependencies ahead of time. So it's smart enough to know if they're already in there once, you don't have to put them in again, that sort of stuff. So that's the idea.
Cool. I see there's a question from Anthony here as well, is that just like that's where you'd go to actually edit one of these things. Presumably you're not going to edit yours, but if we've actually created one ourselves, that's where we would actually do that editing work.
Yeah.
So Anthony's also asking, what about creating your own microautomation within the OA robot framework? So I think that's sort of where we're going with that one, right?
So essentially, OA robot comes empty. So it's just a launcher of microautomations, and you can define whatever microautomations you want, or you can go out and find other people who have created robot commands and use theirs. So the starter kit's going to be the ones that we create, but anybody who creates cool stuff can make those available however they want to. If it's within your company, you could just put it on the network and say, hey, go open this Excel file as the definitions of my collection of robot commands, and then you have all of those. So it's super easy. They're super easy to share, and I'm hoping that there's going to be people that might be chemical engineers, and they put together all their lambdas and their little things that have to do with chemical engineering, and then they make that available, and that becomes something that other chemical engineers are like, oh wow, I can use this too. And it takes the friction of delivering Excel solutions completely away. Because if you think about, like, if you're an Excel programmer and you're doing work on Fiverr, like, it doesn't take that long to create the macro. But when you hand it to your customer, they're like, well, what am I supposed to do with a macro? Like, how am I supposed to run this? I don't know VBA. Like, you can't tell, your customer, oh, you have to just, go to Alt F8 or whatever and run it in the macro list. It's not very, but if you have something like OA Robot, you say it's a free download, just take this file. And as long as you have OA Robot running, when you open this Excel file, you're going to have, or actually you don't even have the Excel file open. You just basically, the way it works is you make, so this is my list of command collections. I have tons of robots in here. I have hundreds of robot commands. But it basically knows where these files are. You basically kind of like the add-ins list. You tell it, hey, here's where my command collections are. And it doesn't have to open these files in order to do it. So it knows about everything. It has all of that, that curated information without ever having to open the files. One of my complaints about the way that Excel does their add-in model is that there's so many cool add-ins. There's great Office add-ins, there's great XLLs, DLLs, your tool, etc. There's so many cool things out there. But you tell me one person that has more than 3 add-ins installed on their machine, right? Like, because as soon as something goes wrong, you're like, oh shit, it's one of these it's one of these add-ins. I'm just gonna like delete them all. It's like the first thing that happens.
Well, it's the first troubleshooting step when yours doesn't work, right?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, you can have it so that it opens these, like on yours. I just tell it, here's you have to install it. Doesn't like install your thing for you, but if it gets unchecked for some reason, it will go in and check the box and bring it back in. So it gives you a way, if you tell your customers, hey, use this OA robot thing, then when they kind of forget about like they accidentally closed yours, it's like super easy for them to like get it back open again, along with a bunch of other things.
Cool. So Randy's asking, how do you access the micro automations created or saved in this workbook when you're actually in another or a new workbook?
So I can, it doesn't matter. Like, you can be in any workbook. So if I go into a totally blank workbook, all of my micro automations are available. So I have literally hundreds. Just about every Excel feature is in here. I don't have to have any of those open. You basically just register that file exists, and then it is capable of reading the metadata out of that file without ever opening it. So and it's super duper fast. So the way that it gets all of this information is by looking at those closed workbooks that it's aware of, and it's able to get the metadata out of those files and compile all of the things, even stuff that you maybe very rarely use, are still just a few keystrokes away from being run. So you're basically curating all of the stuff that's important to you. And even stuff like for Monkey Tools, I didn't have time to do this as much as I would have liked, but I could have gone through and created a number of different things for my favorite things in Monkey Tools to just be able to run quickly. And there's all kinds of great add-ins out there. Unfortunately, we can't link to Office add-ins yet because, like Office scripts, because they're so buttoned down. But hopefully, eventually, they'll give us some sort of way to trigger an Office add-in from other programming methods. I'm not sure if I answered the question. Was that Randy? Did I answer your question?
He says yes. There you go.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. It's always good when that happens.
Success.
Awesome. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat at this point in time. So Erik, let's wrap her up for today. But thanks for coming and doing this. You got a really cool tool there. I'm definitely interested to see this one roll out and where it goes from here. So I know I've got my name on the interest list already, and I hope that others will join on there as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So. Thanks for coming. I'm sure we'll have you back again in future as there's updates and things like that. Yeah, crazy fast development indeed, James. And isn't that always the deal, right? Anything that makes us faster and better is always good. So thank you everyone for coming. I will get the recording of this session posted up within the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll get that up on the Skillwave website and post at Meetup once it is available. Again, Erik, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. You know, for honestly, it doesn't seem like you've been hiding in your office and not talking to the public. You seem pretty comfortable here. I appreciate the demo. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next time, folks. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Ken. Bye, everyone.